Well, first of all, it'll be in three tranches. Hopefully, no more than $5 billion will have to be used because we'll get back to negotiating with China. Now, I can't predict that. All I know is that our side is willing at the drop of a hat to go to Beijing to do more investigating, but China is going to have to go back to where they were on the 10-yard line of getting the ball over the goal. In the meantime, they've moved it back to the 30-yard line, and you've got to negotiate in good faith, and that's not good faith negotiation. So if we get this settled with China, I would suggest only about $5 billion of the $16 billion will be used. But the thing I should always start off with is this: that farmers don't want aid, they want trade, they want markets. You work for decades to build up markets. You got to be a credible supplier of your goods, and these negotiations have interfered. On the other hand, the farmers know that China's been cheating for 3 decades, and at least the 2 decades they've been in the World Trade Organization. They ought to live by the rules of international trade, and they don't. And farmers know that you've got to get China quit stealing our intellectual property.
So overall, Senator, where do you and the farmers you represent stand? Still in support of the president's tough stance on China that's leading to a need for aid instead of trade?
The answer is yes, but I also want to back that up with this. Every farmer, including my family that farms, and I'm part of that, you always have a lot of anxiety when it looks like the government's interfering with you, because the farmers got to count on the market. You can't ever count on politicians.
Do you think that the president is going to get the support in the next election that he got in the last election from a rural state like yours, the Farm Belt, given how much pain these farmers have undergone as a result of the trade fight?
As of now, yes, but don't forget it's 15 months away from election season, and a lot of things can happen in 15 months, but also a lot of good things can happen, and that would be if the president has the same success with China that he has now with Mexico, Canada, getting our pork into Argentina, getting our beef into Japan. Negotiating looks like it's going to be easy with Japan. And so he's had a lot of international trade victories, but China is the big kahuna that we got to deal with.
But Senator, I was looking at your Twitter feed earlier. Were you not suggesting there that, in fact, if China plays hardball and there's no deal at all, that will embolden the president against the Democrats in 2020?
It will, and the extent to which China continues to be the same cheater in international trade that they have been for decades, and having a government interfere with normal free market principles, then I think that makes the president's position look stronger. But also, they ought to know that that when Trump sets his mind on doing something, he's got stick-to-itiveness, and they ought to take that into consideration. They need to take into the consideration that they're the second biggest economy, we're the largest economy, and the two of us together, by cooperating, can not only help each other to a great extent, but we can also help the entire world. Because look at what reduced tariffs have done to enhance the lifetime of everybody around the world, from the standpoint that 70 years ago, the world had 50% of the people in poverty. Today, it's less than 10%. That's been freeing up of trade.
Senator, just switching geographies, is the EU an ally when it comes to trade, or is there as much of an enemy as China is?
No, not as much of an enemy as China, because Europe lives by the rules of international trade. Now, let me answer your question from 2 standpoints. One, Europe, Canada, the United States, and Japan have been having 4 or 5 meetings in recent months to have a united front against China. And I hope these 3 entities will back up the president, even though the president can't negotiate for Canada and Europe. The goals that Trump wants in regard to China. Europe also wants. It solves some of their problems. The other thing is, in regard to our negotiations with Europe, they're very difficult when Europe will not negotiate agriculture. We have to have comprehensive negotiation with Europe. That's agriculture, manufacturing, and services. But Europe's taken a position, no negotiations on agriculture. That's about the only difference with us and Europe on trade generally, or on in regard to our own negotiations.
Senator, just want to point out that the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 344 points, another 1% decline day. It's been very volatile lately as these trade tensions have flared up. How do you think about whether it's going to be worth it, given now we're really starting to see the cost in the markets, in the economy, in places like retail, which is not getting a bailout, like the farmers, who are all warning about the hit they're going to take?
First of all, I can understand why people that are in the stock market for a living worry about those things. But if you're in the stock market for the long term, you cannot give anything but success credit to Trump, because when he took over the economy, everybody thought it was going to tank. Look at how fabulously it's increased because of the tax cuts, because of deregulation, and just the certainty that that brings to business in America. So we ought to applaud where the stock market is, even if it's down today. Just think how much it is up in the last 2.5 years.